The Rebel Alliance didn't begin as a single unified force on Yavin 4. It was born from scattered cells and factions. Small, independent groups of freedom fighters, smugglers, ex-Imperials, and idealists who dared to defy the Empire. Together, these cells laid the groundwork for galactic revolution, one ambush, infiltration, and active sabotage at a time. In no particular order, these are the 10 most powerful rebel cells explained. Warning, spoilers are ahead for Andor Season 2. Aldderonian Resistance. This planet-wide resistance, led by Bail Organa and later his adopted daughter Leia, was a foundational pillar of the Rebel Alliance. Operating under the guise of Alderaan's pacifist diplomacy, the group funneled vast resources, intelligence, and personnel into the rebellion. Bail used his senatorial privileges to coordinate covert missions and recruit sympathetic leaders from other systems. While the Empire had strong suspicion about what was going on, they had no proof, and it wasn't until the Imperial Senate was dissolved that they could do anything about it. The destruction of Alderaan by the Death Star was a tragic blow, but it did have an upside. It garnered more support for the rebellion across the galaxy. Leia Organa emerged as a fearless leader, continuing her father's and the Aldderonian Resistance's legacy, and becoming one of the most influential figures in the fight against Imperial tyranny. While the Aldderonian Resistance might have been wiped out in one deadly attack, no one could deny what they stood for, and how, even in destruction, their presence and sacrifice were felt long after they were gone. Phoenix Cell. One of the earliest organized rebel cells to actively combat the Empire, Phoenix Squadron was operating primarily in the Outer Rim on planets like Lothal. Led by Commander John Sato and later Hera Syndulla, Phoenix Cell carried out strategic raids, supply interceptions, and rescue missions. The crew of the Ghost, the Spectres, played a pivotal role, especially figures like Kanan Jarrus, Ezra Bridger, and Sabine Wren. Their efforts helped inspire uprisings across other sectors, and eventually led to the formal unification of rebel cells. Phoenix Squadron was also instrumental in securing crucial alliances, gathering intelligence, and pioneering some of the tactics that became standard in Rebel Alliance warfare. Not only did the Phoenix Cell gather ships and other forces, but they also helped pull together individuals who wanted to stand up and make a difference. They took oppressed and helpless citizens and put them in positions where they could finally make a difference. It was in no small part thanks to the Phoenix Cell that Imperial Grand Admiral Thrawn's forces were defeated at Lothal, and the Grand Admiral himself was removed from the galaxy altogether. This not only deprived the Empire of one of its greatest strategic minds, but it also gave the rebellion a fighting chance when it was still in its infancy. One of the most unique things about the Phoenix Cell, though, was the fact that they had the assistance of Captain Rex, a veteran of the Clone Wars, and Fulcrum agent Ahsoka Tano, a Padawan who had trained with Darth Vader's former alias, Anakin Skywalker. These two allies alone gave them an edge over many of the other fledgling rebel groups. Monalamari. Essential contributors to the Rebel Alliance, the Monalamari offered advanced starships and military expertise. Spearheaded by the likes of Admiral Raddus and Admiral Akbar, the Moncala fleet transformed the rebels from scattered cells into a formidable spacefaring force. They not only brought vital manpower, but they literally converted their underwater buildings into vast capital ships. The Mon Calamari also retrofitted their elegant passenger liners into powerful cruisers, including the famous Home 1. These capital ships were able to directly take on Imperial Star Destroyers, and had a good chance of winning. It put the rebellion on a much more equal footing with the Empire, at least fleet-wise. After their planet fell under Imperial control during the early days of the regime, many Moncala leaders joined the rebellion full-time. Their courage, strategic acumen, and ships were crucial during major engagements such as the battles of Scarif, Endor, and Jakku. The alliance between Mon Cala and the broader rebellion solidified the backbone of the rebel fleet, providing them with the muscle to take on the mighty Imperial Navy. Axis Network. In the years before the rebellion had a name, Luthen Rail, once an Imperial soldier named Lear, built a covert resistance from the heart of Coruscant. Operating under the guise of an antiques dealer, his gallery, galactic antiquities, and objects of interest served as the nerve center for a sprawling intelligence web. To the Empire, he was known only by the codename Axis. But the real mastermind was Clea Markey. Rescued by Luthen as a child, she became his most trusted operative and a true architect of the network, orchestrating missions, managing contacts, and ensuring the network's survival. The Axis network connected key figures like Mon Mothma, Saw Gerrera, and Cassian Andor. It facilitated operations from the Aldani heist to the infiltration of the Imperial Security Bureau through double agent Lonnie Young. Even as the Empire closed in, the network adapted, with Clea stepping into the spotlight after Luthen's sacrifice to protect their secrets. Without Luthen's network, many key rebel leaders wouldn't have made it to Yavin 4, nor would they have learned of the Death Star before it was too late. Rogue One's mission to Scarif never would have happened, and the rebellion would have inevitably been crushed on Yavin. As he said during his monologue to Lonnie, Luthen sacrificed everything for a sunrise he would never see. The Gorman Front. Formed in the capital city of Palmo, the Gorman Front emerged as a response to the Empire's increasing oppression on the planet, as they sought the rare mineral calcite needed in the Death Star's construction. Operating from a hidden headquarters beneath an old Twillery, the group utilized the remnants of the Gorman's once thriving silk industry as cover for their resistance activities. Their base, located near Palmo Plaza, was equipped with surveillance equipment, makeshift bunks, and communication tools, allowing them to monitor Imperial movements and coordinate their efforts. Led by Caro Rylance, the front included members like Enza Rylance, Lazine, and Thela. They collaborated with other rebel operatives including Cassian Andor, Wilman Pack, Velsartha, and Cinta Kaz to plan and execute missions such as the theft of Imperial weapons shipments. ISB supervisor Dedra Miro orchestrated a plan to provoke the Gorman Front into action, providing the Empire with a pretext for a brutal crackdown. During a peaceful protest in Palmo Plaza, the Empire executed a calculated massacre, slaughtering civilians to justify their occupation and mining operations. This atrocity, known as the Gorman Massacre, became a rallying point for the rebellion. Senator Mon Mothma publicly condemned the Empire's actions, marking a pivotal moment in the formation of the Rebel Alliance. The Gorman Front's sacrifice and resilience exemplify the courage of those who stood against tyranny, igniting a spark that would grow into a galaxy-wide rebellion. Saw Gerrera's Partisans. One of the most dangerous rebel cells was Saw Gerrera's Partisans. They were one of the most radical factions in the entire rebellion, causing issues not only for the Empire, but also the rebellion itself. Originating during the Clone Wars on Onderon, the Partisans were known for their brutal guerrilla tactics and unflinching approach to combat. It was an effective approach to warfare, but one that became more deadly and less discerning as the years went on. Saw believed the Empire could only be brought down through total war, often clashing ideologically with more organized and politically or strategically minded Rebel Alliance leaders such as Mon Mothma or Luthen Rail. His tactics included sabotage, assassination, and terror methods that drew results, but also heavy criticism. Often civilians would get caught in the crossfire, although the Partisans waved it off as a necessary sacrifice for the greater good. Although the Partisans were never fully integrated into the Alliance, being kept at an arm's length so as to not taint the public's perception of the rebels as being the good guys, their intelligence gathering and aggressive actions paved the way for later missions, including uncovering the secret construction of the Death Star. Ultimately, Saw Gerrera himself died as a martyr, not only living by the sword, but also dying by it, too. Fulcrum Network. This cell was a covert intelligence operation originally created by Ahsoka Tano, who we touched on a little earlier when discussing the Phoenix Cell. Using the codename Fulcrum, Ahsoka coordinated between fragmented rebel groups, providing them with intelligence, mission updates, and tactical coordination. The network grew to include leaders such as Bail Organa, agents like Alexander Kallus, a former Imperial, Cassian Andor, and other spies. Fulcrum operatives worked behind the scenes, often without recognition, to unify the movement and pass critical information about Imperial movements and vulnerabilities. This network helped build the foundation for the formal Rebel Alliance, connecting cells like Phoenix Squadron and the Lothal Resistance. Masasi Group. Formed by the remnants of Resistance fighters, defected senators, and military deserters, the Masasi Group became the backbone of the Rebel Alliance's presence on Yavin 4. Named after the ancient Masasi temples they repurposed as their hidden base, the group operated in secret, striking Imperial targets while gathering intel and organizing support for the broader rebellion. They were led in part by General Jan Dodonna, one of the few Republic officers who turned against the Empire early on. It was the Masasi Group who analyzed the stolen Death Star plans after Scarif and developed the now legendary trench run strategy that led to the station's destruction. After the destruction of the Death Star, Yavin 4 became too dangerous to hold, and the group was forced to scatter. But their role in securing the first major rebel victory made them one of the most important cells in the entire war. Rebel Special Forces. Often known as Spec Force, which included units like the Pathfinders and specialized troops trained in infiltration, sabotage, and guerrilla warfare, these were the boots-on-the-ground types. Yet, they remained separate and far more secretive to the usual rank-and-file troops. This secretive yet effective cell was one of the rebellion's most swift and decisive when it came to taking action. These operatives undertook high-risk missions behind enemy lines. The Pathfinders were involved in major battles, including Scarif, Hoth, and Endor. Operating under and reporting directly to Rebel High Command, Spec Force agents blended espionage with military precision. Their actions disrupted Imperial supply chains, assassinated key figures, and gathered vital intelligence. Their numbers may have been few, but they were essential to turning the tide of the war in the rebellion's favor from the shadows. Mandalorian Resistance. After years under Imperial rule, Mandalore had become a shadow of its former self. The Empire had installed a puppet regime under Gar Saxon, outlawed traditional armor, and crushed dissent. But Resistance brewed quietly in the shadows, led by warriors who refused to let their identity be erased. Bo-Katan Kryze, former member of Death Watch and sister of the fallen Duchess Satine, took up the mantle of leadership, uniting scattered clans like the Night Owls and the Protectors. With the help of Sabine Wren, who passed her the Darksaber, she forged a new coalition of Mandalorians, rallying the clans willing to fight for their home world. These weren't rebels in the traditional sense. They were fighting for Mandalore. Their uprising was short-lived. The Great Purge that followed saw Mandalore bombed into oblivion, the Resistance shattered, and the Darksaber captured by Moff Gideon. But their defiance lived on in every Mandalorian who whispered, "This is the way," and they would later return and reclaim their world, igniting the Great Forge as a united people.